Hello students. So in today's lecture we are going to start with the second chapter of physics, ninth class, that is chapter 9, force and laws of motion. Learning outcomes of this lecture are: 1. Define force. 2nd. Give the effects of force. 3rd. Define inertia. 4th. Discuss the three types of inertia with examples. 5th. What are balanced and unbalanced forces? Now students, you have learned something about force and the effects of force in your 8th class too. So you must be having little knowledge about this first two learning outcomes. Okay? Now, in the previous chapter, 8 motion, we have studied the different terms related with motion. We have seen distance, displacement, speed, velocity, different kinds of speed and velocity, and then finally acceleration. Acceleration was totally a new term for you this year. You know now what is acceleration. You are familiar with what is acceleration. You can define it. Acceleration is change in velocity in unit time or rate of change of velocity. When do we say a body is accelerated? When its velocity changes. And you know that when velocity changes, obviously the speed is also changing. And maybe the direction is also changing. So speed may change or direction may change or both may change. And we are generally considering in our syllabus motion along a straight line. So in that case, when a body is accelerated, then only the magnitude of speed changes. We have not studied what is the cause of acceleration. Who produces this acceleration? Who is responsible for the change in velocity of a body? Okay, so in this chapter we are going to study what is the cause of acceleration. Who is responsible for this change in velocity? Okay, so first let us study what is force. Before we start with this, let us accept it that force is the cause of acceleration. Force is required to produce acceleration. If no force is acting on a body, then a body cannot be accelerated. It means its speed or velocity, let us say, specifically, velocity will not change if no force is applied on it. Now you know little bit about force because in your lower classes, you define force in a very simple way. How do you define force in 8th class? How did you define? You defined it, force is a push or a pull. Even if I ask you to define the force now, your answer will be force is a push or pull. But that answer will not give you marks in your 9th class. Here you have to write more. So let us first read this definition of force and then try to understand this definition. Now, force is an external agent in the form of push or pull, which changes or tends to change the state of rest or of uniform motion of a body along a straight line. Okay, so we'll try to understand this definition step by step. Force is an external agent. Why external agent? Because see, if you consider anything at rest, like for example, there in that figure, a ball is at rest and a person is standing close to it. The ball comes into motion when the person kicks it, and kicking is a kind of pushing. Okay, so when a pull is applied, a force is applied on the ball, then only ball comes into motion. If the person does not apply force, the ball will stay there forever. It may move on its own, we may feel when the wind is blowing, but then that it will be the force applied by the moving air, that is wind. Okay, otherwise if no force is applied, it will remain at rest. Similarly here, when the ball is in motion, okay, it is, let us say it is thrown towards the other person and then the person catches the ball. Once he catches a ball, ball comes to rest. So here moving ball comes to rest when the person holds it or applies force to hold it. So in other words, if no force is applied, a body at rest cannot come into motion or a body in motion cannot be stopped. Now in this case a ball is thrown in air. Suppose if the ball is rolling on the ground, then also we'll consider that it should never stop. But in our day-to-day life we see that ball stops on its own. But you have studied this in lower classes that there is a force called hidden force. A hidden force called frictional force which is responsible for stopping the motion of the ball. So indirectly, when no force is applied on a body, if it is at rest, it remain at rest. If it is in motion, it should continue with the same motion in the same direction. This we'll study in more depth after studying this topic. So external agent. Why external agent? Because a person is required here to stop the ball or to make the ball move. Similarly, it is not necessarily a person, it can be an object also. So it has to be an external agent. Force is an external agent. In this example, this person is an external agent. Okay? So force is an external agent in the form of push or pull. Whether a person catches the ball or kicks the ball, or if a person is throwing the ball vertically upwards, then he is also pushing the ball in the upward direction. So kick, hit, stretch, pull, throw, all these can be taken to be one of these forms, either push or pull. So force is an external agent in the form of push or pull, which changes or tends to change the state of rest here. Now in this case, a ball is lying at rest, so person is kicking the ball and ball comes into motion. Let us suppose here a big heavy box is there and a person kicks or tries to pushes the box, and he may not succeed in pushing it. He may apply the force, but the box may not move. So in that case, we say that it tends to change the state of rest. And here in this case, when he is kicking the ball comes into motion, so it changes the state of rest. Okay? Or of uniform motion of a body along a straight line. It means if a body is moving in a uniform motion along a straight line, that is, his speed is constant, his direction is constant, then according to this definition, force applied on it can only change its state of uniform motion along a straight line. It means force applied can change the speed of a moving body in uniform motion, and it can also change the direction. It may change, it may tends to change. For this we can consider if during the cricket a bowler is throwing a ball, doing bowling and throwing a ball towards a batsman. Then the batsman hits the ball. So he is changing the direction of motion of the ball. Okay, and suppose here if a ball is rolling with constant speed on the frictionless surface, okay, then it should continue to move forever. But ideally there is no frictionless surface and automatically the ball stops because of frictional force applied on it. So here, let me repeat this. I hope you have understood this. Force is an external agent in the form of push or pull, which changes or tends to change the state of rest or of uniform motion of a body along a straight line. This definition I hope you have understood. You will understand it better as we proceed further. Okay, so you have to learn this definition of force. Now let us see what are effects of force. We can list the effects of force as follows. It can change the speed of a body, as we have seen. It can, why I have written, because you may write it changes or tends to change the speed of a body. It can change speed or it may tends to change the speed of a body, but I am writing it simple. It can change the speed of a body. It can change the direction of motion of a body. It can make a stationary body move. It can stop a moving body. It can change the shape and size of a body. These 5 are the effects of force. You must have studied this in lower classes also, and this we have considered previously also. Just now we have considered. When a person who is batting in the cricket, when he hits the ball with his bat, he changes the speed of the ball moving towards him. He also changes the direction of motion of a ball. Okay, so a batsman, when his bat hits the ball, in that case the speed as well as the direction of the moving ball changes. So effects of force, it can change the speed of a body, it can change the direction of motion of a body, it can make a stationary body move that we have seen before. If a ball is at rest, a person may kick a ball and make it move or push anything by applying force. It can stop a moving body. If anything is in motion, a ball is in motion, you can stop by applying force. So you can stop a moving body. So here these third and fourth points, if we consider, they are similar to the first point. Because when a stationary body moves, the speed changes from 0 to certain positive value. When it can stop a moving body, it means speed becomes from some positive value to 0. So indirectly this third and fourth point we have got from the first point only. Okay. Lastly, it can change the shape and size of a body. As we can see here, let us see, we have a compressible spring here. In the first case, here it is the normal size of the spring and it is very flexible. If we apply a force on it, either in one direction or in both the direction towards this side. Let us say I apply a force towards this side and here this side. From both the sides, if I apply a force towards the spring, then the spring will get compressed. So this spring has got compressed here because force has been applied on it from both the sides. Okay. Even we may suppose suppose this thing is fixed and I apply a force on it from this side, then in that case also it will get compressed. So here the size changes. Okay. Or if you suppose stretch the spring from both the sides, okay, or if it is fixed at one end, you stretch it from one side, in both the cases the size of the spring will increase. So in this case the size decreases, in this case size increases by applying the force. And suppose if it is not very flexible spring, if it is very stiff, then we may apply force but we may not succeed in changing its size. So we can say it changes or tends to change the size of a body. How shape? See, we have a ball there and in the first figure the ball is spherical in shape. Let us consider a simple rubber ball. In the second case, sorry, my drawing is not that good. I have drawn two hands compressing the ball. It means applying the force on the ball. Okay, pushing the ball from both the sides and the shape of the ball changes. So here we can accept that force can change the shape and size of a body. Clear? So these are the different effects of force which you should learn. I don't think so you will find them difficult as you have done some of these in your lower classes. Now let us see the last learning outcome first and then we'll see the third and fourth learning outcomes. Let us see what are balanced forces. Now first we'll read the definition. I'll read the definition here. Two or more forces acting on a body simultaneously. Simultaneously means at the same time. Are said to be balanced if their resultant is 0. Two or more forces acting on a body simultaneously are said to be balanced if their resultant is 0. Okay, and what are unbalanced forces? Unbalanced forces, we can say, are the forces which act on the same body simultaneously and their resultant is not 0. Okay, so learn this definition. I'll try to explain you this definition and hope it will be clear to you. What do you mean by resultant? See, force is a vector quantity. This, at least you know something about vector quantity now. You know that vectors have direction and magnitude both. So force is a vector quantity which has both magnitude and direction. And even if we don't go in depth, but at least you know that the SI unit of force is Newton. This you have studied in your 8th class. We'll study about Newton in depth in the next part of the chapter. But at least we can accept that force is a vector and it has the SI unit Newton. Now if we have scalar quantity like 2 kg plus 3 kg, kg is a mass. Suppose you have 2 kg apples and 3 kg apples. what will be the sum of 2 and 3 kg? It will be 2 plus 3, 5 kg. Similarly, if you have 5 meter thread and 6 meter thread, what will be the total length of the thread? 5 plus 6, 11 meters. Now, in case of scalars, we simply add the two magnitudes and give the final answer. And we say that is the sum of the two scalar quantities. Just like we add two numbers in algebra, similarly we add two scalar quantities. But let me tell you, vectors have magnitude and as well as direction. When we add two or more vectors, the answer that we get, we call it as resultant. When we add two or more displacements, we say the net displacement. When we add two or more velocities, we say the net velocity, and similarly here we have net force. Or that I've just given you an example, okay, that when we add two or more vector quantities, whatever answer we get, we call it resultant. So instead of net, what word is preferred? Resultant. Okay, so when we add two or more vectors, the addition of vectors is not as simple as we add the scalars. But we'll consider the simple case here, because vectors may have any direction. Forces may be in any direction. So how to add them? That is not very simple, but let us see how to add vectors if they are in the same direction or if they are in the opposite direction. Here we are just going to consider that the two vectors are in the opposite direction. And which vector we are going to consider? Only force. So in this case, we have a box and two forces are applied on it, which are two vectors. One is 2 Newton on the left hand side. One is 5 Newton force which is acting on the box towards left hand side, and 2 Newton, it acts towards right hand side. Now, if we have to take the resultant of the two forces, it means we have to add the two forces. Okay, so when the two vectors are in opposite direction, how we add them? We subtract the magnitudes, like 5 minus 2, it is 3 Newton. And what will be the direction of that addition? What will be the direction of resultant? The direction of the greater vector. So, which is greater? 2 Newton and 5 Newton. 5 Newton is a greater vector, greater force. It means the resultant of 2 Newton and 5 Newton, which are the two forces acting on this box, is 3 Newton and its direction is towards left hand side on this box. So here the resultant is not 0 Newton. Such forces, so these two forces now are said to be unbalanced forces. Consider this. Here two forces are acting on the box in the opposite direction, see here, but their magnitudes are equal. So in this case, when we take the resultant, when we add them, how we'll add these two vectors? Well, when they are in opposite direction, we subtract their magnitudes. So 2 minus 2 is 0 Newton, and 0 Newton is a vector which has no specific direction. It means no forces acting on the box when two equal and opposite forces are acting on it. So when the resultant is 0 Newton, when the resultant is 0, the forces are said to be balanced forces. So here these two forces are said to be balanced because their resultant is 0. Similarly here, third case, we have considered 2 Newton force acting on the box towards right hand side and 1 Newton is acting on it at the same time towards left hand side. So it's again the two vectors the two forces are in the opposite direction. So how we'll add them? We'll subtract their magnitudes in this case as we have done here. 2 minus 1, 1 Newton. What will be the direction of the greater vector? Now 1 is 2 Newton, 1 is 1 Newton. So which is a greater vector? 2 Newton. It means the resultant of these two forces is 1 Newton. So it is a force having magnitude 1 Newton and direction will be towards right hand side. So again the resultant is not 0. So these two forces are unbalanced forces. I hope you have understood now what are balanced and unbalanced forces. Okay, simply here at least you have learned how to add two vectors when they are in opposite directions. How will you add when two vectors are in opposite direction? See, here also they are in opposite direction. In this case also they are in opposite direction. So in the three cases, the vectors are in opposite directions. So in these cases, we have to subtract the magnitudes and take the direction of greater vector to get the resultant vector. As in first and third case, the resultant is not 0 Newton. So these two forces are unbalanced or non-balanced forces in the first and third case. But in second case, the forces are balanced as the resultant is 0 Newton. So I hope this is clear now. This diagram we have done it for two forces. There may be many forces acting on the body, but we will not study that now. So two or more forces acting on a body simultaneously are said to be balanced if their resultant is 0. And unbalanced forces are the forces, or two or more forces acting on a body simultaneously are said to be unbalanced if their resultant is not 0. I hope this is clear to you. And remember that the balanced forces, suppose this is a balanced force, whenever the forces are balanced, it means no forces acting on the body. There may be many forces acting on the body, like in this case there are two forces, but the resultant is 0. It means it is equal to as if no forces acting on the body, and in this case the balanced forces cannot change the speed or direction of a body. It means they cannot change speed and direction. It means they cannot change the velocity of a body. If velocity they cannot change, they cannot accelerate the body. So acceleration can never be produced by balanced forces. For acceleration to be produced, the forces should be unbalanced. Only when unbalanced forces or force act on the body, then only a body can be accelerated or its velocity can be changed. Then what is the purpose of balanced forces? What can they do? See, in the previous, when I have drawn the figure, when a ball is compressed from both the sides. Suppose if you apply same force on the ball, suppose instead of this box, solid box, if we have a rubber ball, or if we have very elastic material, then if we apply balanced forces on it, then the shape will change. Or if it is spring, then this can compress the spring. Okay, so balanced forces can change the shape and size of a body, as we have seen in case of spring or in case of rubber ball, if two equal and opposite forces act on the body. Balanced forces can change the shape and size, but unbalanced forces can change the velocity of a body, and hence they can accelerate, they can produce acceleration in a body. I hope the concept of balanced and unbalanced forces is clear to you now. Now students, let us also learn this, how to add two vectors when they are in the same direction. Okay, so I am just teaching you this. This is not the learning outcome required here, but this you should know this. Now if on a box 2 Newton and 3 Newton forces are acting on it and they are in the same direction. So in that case, how to add them when they are in the same direction? In this case, we will add their magnitudes, 3 plus 2, 5 Newton, and direction will be of the resultant will be as this direction only, because both of them are having the same direction. I hope it is clear how to add the two vectors when they are in the same direction. Even if 2 Newton is pushing here, 3 Newton instead of here, if someone is pulling it 3 Newton towards that side, then also direction is same, 2 Newton in this direction push, and 3 Newton pulling from this side in this direction, again it will be same only. So when the two vectors are in the same direction, to add them we just add their magnitudes and keep the direction same to get the resultant. And I have told you before, when they are in the opposite direction, we subtract the magnitudes and take the direction of the greater vector to get the resultant vector. I hope addition of two vectors when they are in the same direction or opposite direction is clear to you. Now let us see. Here initially it was believed that what is the natural state of body? Obviously if I ask you this question, what is the natural state of a body, you will say that it is at rest. I mean to say that if we don't apply any force on a body, how will it remain? In which state will it remain? Your answer will come, it will remain at rest. if no force is acting on a body. This was a belief long back. But then later on, Galileo Galilei was a scientist, physicist who proved that it is not that natural state of the body is state of rest. A body at rest will remain at rest, or a body in uniform motion along a straight line will continue to remain in the same state of uniform motion along a straight line if no force is applied on it. It means when no force is applied on a body, then it will maintain its state, whether it is a state of rest or state of uniform motion along a straight line. We'll try to understand this soon. Now consider here. Now in this case, suppose if this is an inclined surface and it is 100% smooth or very smooth. Smooth means frictionless surface without any dips or without any projections. So if this is a frictionless inclined surface and we drop a ball from here, then when it rolls down an inclined plane, then what happens? The velocity increases. So when a ball is dropped or released from here, speed is 0. When it comes down, speed increases and it is maximum at the bottom. So velocity is increasing, it means it is a case of positive acceleration. Similarly, if you have inclined plane, frictionless plane, and you throw a ball in the upward direction like this, not vertically upward, you push a ball in this direction, and obviously not with huge force here, because otherwise you will say, ma'am, it may go out from that side, it may fall down. Okay, so in this case, if we try to push this ball in this direction, then when we are pushing, we are giving it some velocity. We are applying force, we are giving it some velocity, and as it goes up, what happens? Velocity decreases and it may stop, it may become 0 and the ball may come down, and when it comes down, it is a case of positive acceleration. So ball rolling down an inclined plane is having positive acceleration. A ball which is moving upwards, rolling towards upward side on an inclined plane, it is under negative acceleration. And when we consider a ball which is moving with certain speed in a particular direction on horizontal frictionless surface, if the frictionless surface is horizontal, not inclined, then we can expect that ball will continue to move forever without changing its speed, without changing its direction of motion. It means it will remain, it will have the same velocity forever, and so there will be no acceleration. So this is a case of positive acceleration. This is a case of negative acceleration till it reaches this peak position. And that is a case of zero acceleration where no change in velocity takes place. So let us see the activity which was performed by Galileo Galilei. Now in this first case, first of all, this surface is frictionless surface. It is a very smooth surface. Now in this case, these straight surfaces are having the same slope. Okay. So if a ball is dropped from here, when the ball was dropped from here, it was observed that ball then reaches down and it climbs up the other surface on the other side having the same slope and reaches the same height and again comes down. It means if a ball is dropped from this side, it rolls down, and we know when it rolls down, it is getting positive acceleration. It moves on the other side, goes up, so negative acceleration, and it reaches the same height as this height. Okay, as this height it reaches the same point and then it comes down and the thing continues. Then it was thought maybe ball tries to travel the same distance, because whatever the distance ball has covered on this side, the ball has covered the same distance on the other side also. Now in the second case, what we have done, we have changed the slope of this inclined surface. We have reduced the slope of this inclined surface. See, instead of this, it is a little bit like this. So we have decreased the slope of this second inclined surface. Again, it is very smooth. So when again the ball is dropped, actually this side should be exactly same. When again the ball is dropped from the same height, and let us say the same surface is there, the ball goes on the other side, but now it is seen that the ball travels larger distance, but it finally reaches the same height. But it travels more distance. In the first experiment, it was thought that maybe ball is trying to travel the same distance on the other slope, on the other plane. But in the second case, it was found that ball is not traveling the same distance, because had it traveled the same distance, the height would have been lesser. In the second case, the ball travels the greater distance, larger distance in order to reach the same height. And then again it comes down. Okay. So in the third case, an inclined plane is taken here. I have drawn it small, consider the same inclined plane. So in this case, if this second surface becomes horizontal, if we still reduce the slope of the second surface, here the slope is, this is a slope, here the slope is reduced, it is still reduced, it is 0 now. In this case, when the surface is horizontal, we say the slope of the surface is 0. So if the second surface is having 0 slope, it is made horizontal. Then if a ball is dropped from here, first what happens? There is positive acceleration, and at the bottom speed becomes maximum, and then ball continues to move in this direction, and it travels infinite distance. We can expect it to travel infinite distance. It should continue to move forever in order to reach the same height, which is not possible. Just remember, we are considering frictionless surface. Okay. So from this activity, we can conclude that it is not only the ball which is at rest, or a body which is at rest remains at rest if no force is applied on it. Even if a body is in uniform motion along a straight line, if no force is applied on it, it should continue to move with same velocity, should continue to have the same state of uniform motion along a straight line forever if no force is applied on it. So from this activity, Galileo Galilei ultimately stated that the natural state of the body is not the state of rest. It can be state of rest, it can be state of uniform motion along a straight line. It means if no force is applied on a body, then the body will maintain its state. Whether it is a state of rest or whether it is a state of uniform motion along a straight line, it will maintain the state when no force is applied on it. Clear? So let us see what is inertia now. From the Galileo Galilei experiments, it was proved that a body tends to maintain its state of rest or state of uniform motion along a straight line. It means a body does not change its state on its own. So that ability of a body to maintain its state of rest or of uniform motion along a straight line was given the name inertia. So what is inertia? It is a tendency of a body to maintain its state of rest or of uniform motion along a straight line. Maybe in few books you will find it the other way around, but it means the same thing only. Meaning is same, only the words are changed. They write inertia is the inability of a body to change its state of rest or of uniform motion along a straight line. Both the definitions mean the same. Either it is a tendency of a body to maintain its state or inability of a body to change its state, and this it means the same. I hope this is clear. And every body has certain inertia. 3 types of inertia. So how many types of inertia are there? 3 types. Inertia of rest, inertia of motion, inertia of direction. How will we define inertia of rest? Inertia of rest is a tendency of a body to maintain its state of rest. Very simple. We are getting these 3 definitions from this definition only. Inertia of rest is a tendency of a body to maintain its state of rest. What is inertia of motion? Inertia of motion is a tendency of a body to maintain its state of uniform motion. We will not talk about along a straight line. We will not talk about direction here. So inertia of motion is a tendency of a body to maintain its state of uniform motion or to maintain its speed. Inertia of direction is a tendency of a body to maintain its direction of motion. So the 3 definitions, I hope they are clear. Let us try to understand them by taking one simple example. Suppose if you are sitting in a bus, okay? If you are sitting in a bus or standing in a bus, okay? The bus is at rest. And if all of a sudden the driver starts the bus and accelerates it, then you get a jerk. In which direction you get a jerk? In the forward direction. Why? Because your feet in contact with the platform of the bus, they were at rest before. And when the body comes into motion, they come into motion along with the bus. But your upper part of the body, due to inertia of rest, tends to remain at rest. So you get a jerk. My dear, in which direction you will get a jerk? Forward or backward? Backward. Okay? So be careful. Here you get a backward jerk when due to inertia of rest, a bus is accelerated or it starts from rest all of a sudden. Inertia of motion. Now suppose here, if you are sitting or standing in a moving bus and the driver all of a sudden applies brakes, it means the velocity changes. Then what happens? You get a jerk. In which direction you get a jerk? Now you get a jerk in the forward direction. Why? Because your feet in contact with the platform of the bus, they were moving with certain speed, initially certain velocity, and when suddenly the brakes are applied, the feet in contact with the platform of the bus, they come to rest, but upper part of the body tends to maintain the same state of motion or same state of uniform motion or same speed. So we get a forward jerk. Inertia of direction. Suppose if you are sitting in a bus, especially on the front seat, and the driver takes a sharp U-turn, what happens? Then you get an outward or sideward jerk. What happens here? Initially, you are going straight, so your body is maintaining one direction of motion. When the driver takes a turn, then your feet in contact with the platform of the bus also changes the direction of motion. But upper part of the body tends to maintain the same direction of motion as before, and hence you get a sideward or outward jerk. So I hope the three types of inertia, their definition are clear to you and you have understood them by these examples. We have many more examples, but I think these examples are enough now. Hope you have achieved the learning outcomes of today's video, and we'll talk about inertia, more about inertia in our next lecture. Clear, students?